Right. Hello. Here we are on our workshop today about navigating the voiceover industry. We got a lot of you already in the room here. Hey, Allison and Avery and Chris and Dara and Diana and John and Justin. Wow, guys, this is awesome. You guys were waiting. We got like 26 of you already in here. I'm just thrilled that we're here together, that we can do this. I'm just going to let some people get on for a couple minutes, and then I'll introduce myself and the fabulous guest we have here to discuss all this. So hey, Rose and Sandra and Trenton. Trenton, I know you're very familiar with David. Hi, Lauren. All right, this is awesome. All right, I was going to wait another minute or so to let people get in. And then we're going to talk about VO because I think there's a lot we get to talk about in the shifting of the industry and everything that's going on. Oh, there's a poll. Oh, I didn't launch the poll. I'm launching the poll. There's a poll for you to take about your current voiceover status. I invite you all to take that poll before we get started. Let's see what's going on here. Hi, David. Hi. Rose says she can't hear anything. All right, Rose, it's got to be something on your end because I think people can hear us. So I would double check your speakers, Rose. On the bottom left, there's a little mic in the black screen that says mute. There's an arrow there, so you can test your sound. I think something's happening on your end there, Rose. Not that you can hear.
I think it's so funny that you're explaining it to her.
I just realized it.
As if she can hear you.
I know. I'm sorry you can't hear, Rose. Let me continue. Yeah, literally right before you said that, I was like, what am I doing? Look, I'm blushing. See, I'm blushing now. Let's see. Okay. We don't need a mic for this, correct? Nope, Angie, you're good. Hello, everyone. All right, everyone's taking the poll now. And I just want to say in the chat, okay, there's going to be two different functions that we're going to be using in this before we get started. The chat function is going to be for you guys to chat with each other. Okay, so make sure when you're chatting that you are chatting to all panelists and attendees. David and I are panelists. You guys are attendees. So if you're like, what did they just say? I missed something. What's the link? Pop, pop, pop. Post to each other. That way you guys can support each other in the chat. Now there's a Q&A function where if you have a question specifically for David or myself, I'm going to be screening those Q&As, and I believe David can see it as well. So if you have a direct question that you want us to answer, make sure to post it in the Q&A function. It just keeps things really easier for us to navigate. But for all of you, again, you want to chat with everyone else. Make sure you are chatting to all panelists and attendees. Hello, Katie. Hey, Justin. All right, we are all taking our poll. This is great. So, oh, good. We have we got a lot of different things here. So far, I asked people, David, can you see the poll? I think you can. No, maybe?
I can see the poll, but I can't see the results.
Got it. Okay. So VO setup at home, we have 26% says, yes, I'm a pro. 18% says, yes, I just got started. And 55% say, nope, that's why I'm here. So great. That's good to know. And a lot of you have a lot of different interests in the voiceover area. 79% of you are for commercial radio, 82% in audiobooks, 79% in animation, 64% video games, and 36% IVR. This is great. Just wanted to get an idea of the level of where you're at in your voiceover career, and what your interests are. So this is great. So
Can we ask a special category?
Yeah.
How about podcasting?
Podcasting. That's a good one. I don't know if I can add it now that I've started it though.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But like just in the chat, if people can like say in the chat.
That's a great idea. Yeah, if you're interested in podcast. Yep. Lauren says podcast. Ed says no.
No, not for me.
Yeah, not for him. Nope. Josh, yes. No, not interested. I love it. Nope. Talk about something else. Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. We got about 45 of you here so far. I think we're going to dive on in because there's a lot of info to share and a lot of things to talk about. So thank you all for taking that poll. I'm going to end it so we can see the results there. So I'm, 82% of you wanting to talk about audiobooks. Well, I'm super psyched you're here about that because David, which I'll say in a minute, but he's the one that got me started in audiobooks. My whole audiobook career is because of David H Lawrence XVII. Wow. So yes. Oh, I'll share the results. Now you all can see them.
There you go.
Cool. This is great. Oh, I'm so excited, you guys. So look, hi. I think a lot of you know me, but maybe some of you don't. So I am Jodie Bentley. I am an actor, a producer, an audiobook narrator, as I just said, and I'm a career coach. So if you don't know me, you can check me out at jodiebentleycareercoach.com. And I had to put this workshop together because, as we know, our industry has been upended, to say the least. And I think it makes a lot of us feel chaotic and out of control. Yet there is so much that we can control. And it's about laying the groundwork now to be ready for the upswing and be ready for the changes and shifts that are going to come in the industry. And of course, if I'm doing something about voiceover, I had to invite David H. Lawrence XVII to be here. He is a TV and film actor. He is best known for his role as the puppet master on NBC's Heroes. He's a voiceover artist and teacher at voheroes.com. He's the creator of the Rehearsal Pro app. Some of you might not know that, but you probably use that all the time. And he's the creator of CameraReadyU.com. And as I mentioned,
I am so tired. I am
right?
so exhausted.
This workshop is done.
All that.
We're done. And as I said, he's my voiceover mentor and how I got started back in audiobooks back in 2013 when I first moved to Los Angeles. So I'm excited that he's here so we can just dig deep and talk about, you guys know I swear, some shit. So here we go. So I want to start by saying yesterday I got an email from my voiceover agent. I'm up to Coast, and she was like, what is in your studio? What do you have? What's your mic? It's like a 13 question thing. And she's like, the industry is coming back. We need to know who has home studios because the auditions are coming. So It was really great to hear that. And David, I wanted to start by getting your thoughts on that and the state of the industry and where we're moving and what's been your experience in hearing how things are already beginning to shift.
Yeah. So I think voiceover is like a bit of a unicorn because yes, everything else in the industry has shut down. But if you'll notice, as you're tuning in to MSNBC and CNN and CBS, and whatever else you watch to get your news on COVID-19, you're also seeing commercials. And not all of these commercials were produced back in January, December, and November. Right. Many of them are being produced now. And on radio, I don't think there's any lack of commercials on your local radio station, your national shows. It's all still happening for voiceover. And I think a reason for this, it's very odd and very opportune. Voiceover was the first area of performing arts that was disintermediated by the internet. I remember when I first got to LA, I tell this story all the time, so forgive me if you've heard it before, but when I first got to LA, I picked up an agent fairly quickly, independent artists, and Beverly was very old school, very old school. She had a studio in her offices in Beverly Hills, and you'd go there. That's how you'd audition, right? I'd been doing work at home for almost a decade, but I was the unicorn back then. I was very odd, very weird. And then one day there were brush fires and then floods and then mudslides, and all of the canyon crossings between where I live in the valley here in LA and Beverly Hills were impassable. And she had an audition for me. She's like, got to come in. And I'm like, well, I can't get there. You couldn't get there from there anyway, right? You can't get from the valley to Beverly.
Right.
So I said, please let me just record it in my home studio for you. And, and she, no, we have a studio. We have an engineer. And then I said, please, I beg you, let me, if you don't like it, great. And so she said, fine. And she sent me the script and I recorded it in my studio, which at the time was being used because I was hosting a show on Sirius and XM at night, right? So it was set up. And I sent it back to her and I get a call from her like 5 minutes later. She goes, how do you make your mic sound like that? That's that's awesome. So I never had to have that conversation with her again.
Good.
But it was the very beginning of that being the case. Yeah. Most of the time, either she wanted me to come in, go to a studio somewhere and do it. But over time, that has become the norm. And now, like, I barely know that there's still a sun and that there are people in terms of getting out and going someplace for an audition. I've been socially distanced by voiceover for 15 years, right? And it also affects what I teach about voiceover, how I teach the workflow of voiceover.
Mhm.
And so, yes, everything else is going to hell in a handbasket, except voiceover. It's the strangest thing. If you go on ACX and look for the number of projects available, it's fluctuating exactly the same way as it always has. It's not down to zero. You know what's down to zero is on-camera auditions.
Right.
And you know what else is down to zero? My sales of Rehearsal Pro. I've sold 2 copies in the last week, and I normally sell between 10 and 20 a day. And it's just because nobody's doing anything. Nobody's like, it's not happening, right?
Mhm.
You know Michael Kostroff, don't you?
Of course, yeah.
So Michael just did a video this past Sunday night about how things are at a standstill when
Mhm.
it comes to on camera,
Yep.
and how he's thinking about, you know, in a few months, maybe giving up his apartment in New York. Like, there's a lot of real stress and anxiety going on in many parts of our business. And where you hear television shows have been shut down, films have been shut down, what hasn't been shut down is audiobooks, commercials,
Mhm.
IVR. I'm sorry, what else did you have on your little poll there? All of
All
those
of it.
things,
Mhm.
right? And podcasts have become even more popular because people are sheltering in place. They're at home, they're bored.
Right.
And, you know, I put a video out, my podcast episode last week, about taking this time and really refining your skills, and taking this gift that we have of time that we didn't expect,
Right.
to focus on making that moment when we do get back into the swing of things even better, because we've now studied, we've worked, we've, you know, so I think I just vomited all that up all over you, but I apologize.
No, but it's totally true. Like, I know, like, it feels like quarantine vacation, but this is not the time to take vacation. This is the time to feel your feelings and process the information that's going on in the state of the world. Yes, it's a lot, but it is
Yeah.
the time to lay the groundwork, right? So you are ready. And like you said, you're educating yourself on the areas of the industry that maybe you haven't had time to do. So I keep telling my clients, now's the time to do the branding, do the marketing, get the website up, do the voiceover, get your studio. Like, it's time to do all this. So kudos to all of you to being on this webinar to just lay the groundwork to do it. Because yeah, the VO isn't going anywhere. So we got
At
to get
least not
on.
yet.
At least
At
not
least
yet.
not yet. Yeah.
Right. And that is interesting what you said about commercials. I was hearing the same thing. I was talking to a couple other, I'm in the SAG-AFTRA commercial mom Facebook group, and a bunch of us were talking in there how a lot of their commercials actually got re-upped because they added new voiceover to it about COVID-19. And now they're getting another cycle. So, and just next week, I'm going to be doing another webinar with 2 agents and a casting director. And one of the agents just told me her client booked like a huge commercial campaign that he's shooting at home. So everyone is trying to do new things, right?
Look, if Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, who that networks spend billions of dollars producing and promoting those shows.
Yeah,
And you know what they're doing? They're at home with a webcam right now.
right.
And you know what? Their ratings are up. The
Sure.
ratings are up. This is
Yeah.
dangerous, because this could be the future of our production. Is like, hey, can you come over? Wear a mask. Okay, but can you come over and be on
Right.
camera with me? Just crowd in next to my shoulder and we'll talk.
Totally.
Yeah, or just, you know, like we're doing, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. So to this end of that, there being an influx of VO, and that still industry is still moving, and then we get to work from home. Can we talk about voiceover home setup? Can we give
Sure,
some tips and tools about that?
sure.
Let's do it. What do I need, David?
Oh, you want me to build it from scratch? Just do
Well,
it from
okay, so
scratch?
people are like, so here's a question from Dara. Let's start with this. So Dara Kramer, she took your ACX mastermind in 2015 because of me, yay. And in the last week, she started freelancing with a manager, and it's been really busy. Can I be using the same mic and Audacity setup that I use for audiobooks for the commercial auditions and for recording those gigs at home? It's a great question, Dara. David?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
In
How about you?
fact, yeah. I mean, it's funny because, Dara, I'm hoping that you haven't when you've told people the microphone that you use, the AT2020 USB Plus, the AT2020 USB Plus, with my mic sock on it, when you tell people that, let me just lower this real quick so it's out of the frame, and then I'll bring it back up in just a second to talk on it. When you tell people that this is the microphone that you use, be prepared for them to make absolutely vicious fun of you, because clearly you don't know what you're doing. You're using a USB microphone, really? Seriously? Have you not gotten the memo that a USB microphone is not good enough for doing voice work? I'm so sorry for you. So the truth is, most USB microphones aren't good enough for doing voiceover, because when you think of a USB microphone, you think of a really cheap mic like a Snowball or a Yeti that would be more, or a headset microphone from Logitech. Yeah, those are all USB microphones. They plug into your computer and they suck, but they're okay for like gaming, you know, but they're not good enough for voiceover. This USB microphone is. And the reason is very simple. The equipment that you need if you're using a studio microphone is the mic, a studio mic, and then a box that you plug the studio mic into with the XLR cable, that 3-pin cable, that classic audio cable that you would use. And then that box, which is called an interface or a bridge. You may have heard of a Focusrite, a Scarlett, or in the old days, an M-Box from Pro Tools. Those are all bridges. You plug mics into them, and then you plug those bridges into your computer with a USB cable. Well, all of the electronics that are in that box are compressed down and put in the bottom of this microphone.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you can plug the mic directly into your computer. On all other USB microphones, save just a couple, the electronics that are in the bottom of the microphone are horrible. They're cheap. That's why they're only $20 or $50. This is $120, $140 on Amazon for a reason, because the pickup is a studio quality pickup, that which picks up your voice, and the electronics are studio grade electronics. Now, what I want to do is demonstrate this to you. You've been listening to me, and I want you to think about how I sound right now. I'm being picked up by the shotgun microphone that I use with my camera. And it sounds fine, right? But it's not voiceover quality. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to this microphone, and I'm just going to say the rest of what I have to say. So let me switch real quick.
I love this.
Okay. So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a close play microphone. So you want to be on top of the microphone like this. This is how it's heard. This is how voiceover sounds. And it sounds much clearer in terms of attack than the microphone that I was using before. And I'll go back to that microphone eventually, because I'm playing this microphone as if I was doing voiceover work. But this microphone sounds so much better than you would think a USB mic works and a USB mic sounds. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the mic you use, correct, Jodie?
Yes.
And it's the mic Dara uses. And
Yes.
it's the mic a lot of people that are also my clients
Yep.
use and I use every single day. The phrase in the business is, I eat my own dog food, right? I don't say, oh, you know what, you should use an AT2020 USB Plus. I'll use a Neumann U87, but you, lowly student that you, that's not how I roll. I use this mic because it's awesome. It has monitoring built into it. It has a terrific pickup. It's an 1.25" pickup. And if you don't know what that means, it's awesome. And the frequency response is nice and wide. Listen to the difference in my voice when I'm this far away and when I'm this far away. It picks up so much more of the bass in your voice. And yes, I lowered my voice a little bit, but the point is, this microphone is the microphone to use. And yes, Dara, you can use it for both audiobooks and for commercials, just like I do. I use this microphone for everything I do, except for being on camera. Usually I use a lavalier, or I use a shotgun that I use, because you don't want a mic in the shot. But when you're just doing voiceover and you don't have a camera running, this is the mic to use.
I love it.
There you go. I'm going to switch back.
Okay, great. Marnie says she booked a voiceover for the BBC with that microphone. So thanks for the referral. And a lot of people are saying that's the one they've been looking into getting. So they're really excited.
Yeah, and there's a really good reason to get this one as opposed to one of the other two that are pretty good as well, and that's the Rode NT1 and the Apogee iMic.
Yes, someone just asked about that. Is it
They're
similar
both
to the
great.
Apogee?
They're both great, but the difference is the AT2020 has a headphone jack. And I am insistent that voiceover people use in-ear monitoring or over-the-ear monitoring, because you won't know when you're popping your P's. If you take the advice of other voiceover coaches, oh, don't wear headphones, you'll be in your head. Well, you know what? Figure that out. And I'll help you if you want, but figure that out, because you need to know what you sound like. You need to know how you're attacking the microphone. Otherwise, you're going to double the amount of time it takes you to do every job and every audition, because you got to go back and listen. And then if you did make a mistake, instead of doing a pickup while you were talking, you have to go back and do the whole thing all over again. So please understand, I'm not saying you should do this for any other reason than it's required. And I use earbuds. I use Panasonic $10 earbuds. I don't use my iPhone earbuds. I use, I don't use AirPods. I use a nice, inexpensive, and pristine ear monitoring system, $10 Panasonic earbuds.
I love it.
Yeah.
I have a question here from Justin. He says he has a Scarlett box and a hand-me-down AKG mic, and he uses Adobe Audition.
Okay.
But I don't really know how any of my stuff works, especially the technical aspects in Audition. I'm sure there are a lot of things I need to know, but you have general specs that things should be set at. Also,
so I don't teach Audition. I teach Audacity. I know Audition. I've known Audition since it was actually called Cool Edit back in the late 80s. But I don't use it because it costs money. Adobe wants you to be either a monthly subscriber to their Creative Suite, or you've got to pay an amount of money for it. And Audacity actually works best out of all of your options for voiceover. Voiceover people consistently, pretty much without fail, lay down one particular type of audio, and that is single track, mono, dry voiced audio. Using Audition or Pro Tools or anything else other than Audacity, which by the way is free, and it's supported by a huge, huge development team and a huge user base. Everything else is kind of like lighting a match with an atom bomb, because you don't need the kind of footprint that Audition, and look, use whatever you want. Use what you got. If it doesn't cost you anything, great. I wish I could help you, but I can't know every single tool out there as well as I know the one tool that I use. And I'm Avid certified and DigiDesign certified before that on Pro Tools. I haven't launched Pro Tools in 5 years because I don't need it. We don't need it. We need Audacity, and that's it. So I wish I could help you. I'm sure there are plenty of YouTube videos on how to set things up with Audition, but I'm an Audacity guy. So that's what I teach, and I teach it because it's lightweight, it's easy to operate, and there's a certain feature about it that I take advantage of in the way I teach people how to edit their audiobook work. And that's another reason why I use it. But I wish I had a better answer for you, but I don't. Is it Justin? Was it Justin?
Yeah, Justin. And he just said he uses it because he uses the other Adobe products for photography. He's a photographer.
See?
In his suite.
There you go. So in your case, that makes sense because you're already paying for Creative Suite.
Right.
So,
yeah. But yes, Audacity is free. I've been using that since David told me to use it, and I love it.
And it's not like free, so it sucks.
Right. Right.
It's free. There's no premium version. You can't pay something and get better results. And one of the cool things about audio software is no matter what audio software you use, what you originally record is exactly the same because it's an international standard. The data that flows into your computer that's being converted out of your microphone, if you were to flow it into Pro Tools or flow it into Audition or flow it into Audacity, all things being equal, if you didn't have filters turned on in some of those pieces of software, it would sound exactly the same. So
there you go.
yeah.
All right. So Allison says, I have an at-home setup with the Audio Technica 2020 Plus. She's been using Audacity and she records her VO commercial auditions. She'd like to expand that into audiobooks. So she has 2 questions. Would editing on Audacity for an entire audiobook be a nightmare?
No. I thought you were going to say, is it going to be good?
I know, you were like, yeah, wait.
I was like, yeah. So here's the thing.
That's all I use for audiobooks. That's all
Exactly.
I use. Go ahead,
Yeah. And so here's the thing about Audacity. As I said earlier, I created this process, which I know a lot of people that are attending are also clients of mine, and so they know this process. It's called the stair-step process. And with Audacity, if you have the current version, you have to actually set it in the preferences. But as you record a track, if you stop and start recording again, it will start down and to the right in the next track down and start recording again, rather than continuing on the same track. Now, why is this good? Well, when you're finished, you now have a visual cue, like you may be used to doing, or a clicker, or pickup, or something that leaves a sound wave mark, or clicking the mark button if you have software that adds a mark to your recordings. But this leaves a stair-step pattern all the way down your recordings, and you can't make a mistake. You can miss those little clicker marks or the pickup or even a mark.
Right.
But when you're with the system that I created, when you're editing, you really can't miss, because you're constantly moving back through the product, back through what you've done to the top, and creating that final track that takes less time than if you're doing punch and roll. I know punch and roll fanatics are like, screw you, that's not true. But it is. And I've got a video on my website where one of my clients, Stuart Goffey, who's a brilliant technologist as well as voiceover talent in Washington, D.C., he actually led me through his analysis of punch and roll versus the stair-step method. And he said, I save about 40% of the time that I spend placing my cursor where it needs to be for punch and roll.
Sure.
And then the whole notion of getting out of the story while doing that, and then getting back in the story as you're narrating to do the pickup. You have to like be ready to talk the moment it switches over when you're doing punch and roll. Whereas with the stair-step method, you hit stop, fast forward, record, or in the new version that I have, you simply map those things to 2 keys that you leave your fingers over, the Q and the W. And so when you make a mistake, you don't jump out of the story. You just stop, you hit QW, and you pick it up. And it starts recording on that new track below. And later, when you're done, then you put your engineer hat back on, and you make those edits all the way back up through the product until you're finished with that. That's the stair-step method in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So that process makes audiobooks even more lovely than they actually are. I think people they sometimes have a misconception about audiobooks. They think that audiobooks are just draining. They're tedious. They're awful. You don't get paid enough for all the work that you do. And it can be that way if you're struggling with the process of not only performing, but doing the recording and the editing and the mastering. What I've tried to do with what the class that Dara took, which is the ACX Masterclass, and also my VO Heroes Pros version of those classes, is to turn that into a math problem that once it's solved, it's solved. You can concentrate on being the best performer you can be, and then do the lovely work while your voice is taking a rest to finish the editing on the chapter, and the mastering is dragging and dropping. I just created a piece of software called Audio Cupcake, which replaces levelator for those Mac users who can't use it anymore because it doesn't work with Catalina.
Oh.
So I just got finished doing that. We're putting some tweaks on it before we release it. But the
Nice.
whole point is it's a drag and drop process.
Mhm.
And I think audiobooks are among the most rewarding things that you can do as a performer
Mm.
because you learn stuff. You're centered. It's calming. I love doing audiobooks. And there are people who still look at it mostly because they don't know what they're talking about,
Yeah.
or they haven't experienced it the proper way. They're still struggling with the process. They look at it as a chore, as a real pain in the ass. And it's not. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it's not. And Audacity is actually the best tool for it, not can I possibly do it in Audacity? So the answer is no, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Yes, it's awesome.
It's not going to be a nightmare was the question.
Not going to be a nightmare. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you learn how to do it properly, that's
Right.
always the case. I mean, how many times have you spent inordinate amounts of time trying to figure something out and you don't know where to find the answer and you try a million different things and then you give up because you're frustrated? Well, I get that. Instead, find somebody like Jodie who knows what she's doing and build your brand and run your business. Find somebody like me who knows what he's doing. Find somebody like, what was the name of the guy you had on, Jeff, the other day that I
Yeah.
was,
Yeah. Jeff Berg.
find somebody like him who knows how to set up a self-tape area
Mhm.
and get the answers that you need.
Yeah.
And we're going to give you a link at the end of this where you can take a free class that I have called Getting Started in VoiceOver. And it'll go through all the stuff that we're talking about. So you don't have to take notes. I list all the equipment. I give away all my good stuff in a free class. So
Awesome. I remember, David, when I took an audiobook class with you when I first moved here, and I got some samples and I put them up on ACX. And literally within a week, I got an audition and I booked it. And I was like, yay. And I recorded the book. I think I didn't even have a setup yet. I was like putting a blanket over my head. It was like a nightmare, but it was so much fun. And then I got to editing and I literally like listened to the entire audiobook. I literally took out every breath I did. And then at the end of it, I was like, audiobooks suck. Why am I doing this? And I remember calling you up and being like, there's gotta be a better way. And you're like, yeah, you didn't take the second class. I was like, oh, right. And then you taught me the stair step method. And it's been easy since then. I've booked like 30 audiobooks in Audible. And it's so much fun. And
wow.
every system that you teach and structure you teach, I mean, it works. So it's a great stream of income. And now's the time to jump on it. So
Yeah. Audible, I know Audible was trying to figure out how to gently say, look, yes, people are dying around you, but you should try audiobooks. You know, it's like the message that they're trying to figure out. I talked to the guy that runs ACX and he's like,
oh,
yeah, we're trying to figure out how to, you know, on the Audible side, because it's all Audible people that run ACX, right?
right.
And they all have other jobs, you know, usually within the Audible structure. And he's like, yeah, our big meetings are how do we tell people that audiobooks are great fun when you're sheltering in place?
Right.
You know, how do you do that without sounding like you're capitalizing on the pain? You
Right.
know, so yeah,
Right. Well, we get to remember is it's an income stream for all of us, right? So, you know, and I know a lot of people have lost their jobs now. And if this is something and you have the time and space to do it, this is a viable way to
yeah,
increase your income.
it absolutely is,
Really is.
absolutely.
And it's not a huge investment on the upfront to get the equipment. It's not a ton. Like you just said, the mic is like between 120 and 160 or on Amazon or something like that, depending. So,
Yep.
and Lauren asked, is there a specific sock you should use on your mic? I think that's a very funny question because
It's the mic sock.
it's the
It's
mic
my mic
sock.
sock.
I have my mic sock.
Yeah, it's actually I sourced a sock from China about 4 or 5 years ago, and I went through maybe 50 or 60 different socks to find the one that I wanted. And this one in particular is a combination wool and wool, cashmere, and polyester. And it's just thick enough to act as a windscreen and thin enough that it doesn't change
Like muffled.
appreciably
Yeah.
the sound. It doesn't make you sound muffled.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not talking into it right now, but the when I was before, it didn't sound muffled. It sounded full
Right.
fidelity, and that's the case. And it's because it's only when you stretch it onto the microphone, it's only about an eighth of an inch, quarter of an inch, if that, not even a quarter of an inch, an eighth of an inch thick. But that same webbing, the way this sock is woven, yes, if you wear it as a sock, it will actually wick sweat away from your foot, but it's acoustically clear. And I know you're probably sitting there going, screw you, it's a frickin' baby sock, right? It is. It's a 12 to 24 month infant sock made by one particular manufacturer who makes a sock that's a premium sock. And I sell it for $9 because it cost me about $6. And it's like, I swear to God, it makes all the difference in the world. And the reason that I use a mic sock is because it allows you to get closer to the microphone. If you have a big foam ball or you have a windscreen like singers use in front of it, it keeps you away from the sock. And so if you want to do intimate work, like promos or luxury reads, you know, let me just do this real quick. So did it switch? Can you hear now?
Yep.
So if I'm doing a normal audiobook where I'm reading, and Jodie walked into the room and said, "What are you doing?" Right? So that's one way of using this mic. But if you were to have a commercial where there's a car driving through the mountains for about 28 seconds, and then you hear the announcer say, "Lexus, drive one." You can't do that if you're far away from the mic. You can hear as I move away from the mic. If I was this far away from the mic and played this mic like a singer would with one of those rings with the stockings over it, you wouldn't capture the voice the way voiceover talent captures the voice, right? It's like a focus. It's like a zoom lens for your voice. So I'm going to put this over here and I'm going to switch back. Hold on. There we go. So now you can hear me again. Yeah. And notice how it sounds different. I mean, you wouldn't have noticed any room artifacts before I pointed them out, but you do now. So now I'm using a shotgun and, you know, it's picking me up the way you'd assume people would be picked up on camera. Right. So there you go.
Yeah. And I think the sock thing for me, like, 'cause I've moved apartments a few times, so I've had to reset up my booth/closet. And each time, just because of different acoustics and places and doing things, my sock has shifted depending even on my environment. Or sometimes I had to fold it one more time or unfold it in certain spaces. So, but yeah, my sock I think is wool and polyester as well. But yeah, I think you just get, it's also just testing, right? I think doing tracks and testing how your voice sounds with different things, or you can just buy David's sock. Yep. Either one.
You can go to VO Heroes. Yeah, you can go to voheroes.com/sock and that will take care of you.
Perfect. Okay, here's another question from Angela. She's wondering if you need an acoustic shell or can you get acoustic foam for the walls in a walk-in closet?
Yeah, so in a walk-in closet, you want to leave the clothes in there.
Yeah.
Leaving the clothes in there, you know when you walk into a walk-in closet, how different your voice sounds just to you. It sounds dead. It sounds non-reverberant, which is what you want. I've had people, voiceover talent, who are like, well, maybe I should record in like the bathroom or something, you know, because like the bathroom's really awesome, right? Well, okay, it is maybe for singers, but not for voice talent. Yeah. So what you want is dead. You want non-reverberant space. This room is not my voiceover studio. My voiceover studio does have acoustic foam in it, but it's not effective in stopping outside noise.
Right.
What it's effective in stopping is the reverberation off the walls. That kind of noise, the internal noise. So you really need to have some sort of isolation from the outside. You can go into your walk-in closet, leave the clothes in there and have a great recording, unless there's a lawnmower going on outside and your walk-in closet happens to be on the outside wall of your house.
Right.
So, but acoustic, unless it's an actual sound booth, like a Studio Bricks or a Whisper Room, or a booth that maybe I've developed and have tested, and you know, I'm not selling things here. I'm just saying I think Chris is here, right? Chris uses one of my booths. If you're talking about a booth, then yes, that's really effective. And you don't have to put that in a closet. You could put it in a room like this because it acts as like a room within a room.
Mm.
But you want to make sure that you don't cheap out on it. If you buy a booth that costs like $1,000 or $2,000, likely it's a single walled booth, and it's basically just putting up plywood and maybe some foam, which again doesn't stop outside noise. But
Hmm.
it won't, if it's single walled, it won't stop outside noise. It has to be double or triple walled, because that airspace between the double or triple wall is really what acts as the insulator from noise. The best insulator in the world is water, but nobody has a booth in their swimming pool
No.
except one building in the AT&T research lab in New something New Jersey, but New something, and they have an anechoic chamber, which means no sound whatsoever, or as little sound as they possibly can have,
Oh my God.
within, not concrete, because concrete actually allows sound to travel, not very well, but it does. Water does not. You know that because when you go under the water, everything sounds all muffled.
Hmm.
So imagine having an anechoic booth inside a water chamber. It would drive you crazy. It's so quiet. But for your apartment or for your house, a booth is something you would put in a normal room. Takes up like 6 feet by 4 feet, or depending upon how big it is. Yes, that's effective. But in a walk-in closet, all you need to do is leave the clothes in there. You should be fine.
Mm. Great. Great. All right. Let's see what else we got. I should have been looking ahead, but I got excited hearing your story. So yeah, so Christina asked, "What does your booth look like?" So I think there's a couple different. There's many ways to
It
do
looks like everybody else's booth. It looks
that.
inside. It looks like everybody else's booth. It's got a table in it. It's got foam on the walls, and there's a window. The window is double paned and at an angle. I came out of radio, and I learned the electronics side of things and the acoustics side of things from radio engineers who built studios inside office buildings.
Hmm.
And really, the best source for uh, all of this stuff is a friend of mine by the name of Tim Tippett. And Tim is in the process of building a booth that's going to be a showcase. But even if you want an inexpensive version, he'll show you how to take things and make them quieter. I've learned a lot from him as well. My booth kind of looks like a whisper room booth. If you want the best booth possible, it's studio bricks. I don't have the ability to make studio bricks. I can make my kind of booth, which is built from plywood and mass-loaded vinyl and sealant and stuff I can buy at Home Depot. But studio bricks is like the Mercedes of voice booths, and it's built by a German company as well. If you order one, it's going to take you 4 months or more to get it, and it's going to be shipped over from Germany, and you're going to have somebody come and build it for you. It's like putting blocks together. It's like putting Legos together, but it is quiet, and
Yeah.
it is awesome, and it is $9,000.
Right.
So enjoy.
Right. Right. And yeah, I mean, I record in a closet that I've padded and have a shell and everything, and it works really well for me. So you just get to figure out the sound in your place and how you can just make it the quietest as can be.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about mics, we talked about socks, we talked about earphones. Let's see. So, okay, here's a question. Switching over into animation a little bit, then we'll come back to audiobooks. When it comes down to doing voice work from home, specifically animation, how often are you asked to edit the files you just recorded yourself versus sending the raw files to an engineer to put the final product together?
Yeah. So you don't do animation at home. So unfortunately, it's not a question that has a valid answer. Animation is one of those things that still is locked in the studio space. You'll do auditions for animation at
Right.
home, and you might do animation for an independent producer who is finding you on YouTube or on Voice 123. There you may do it from home, and there you'd do the raw tracks and you would send it to them, and they would do the sound and finalize it, lock it, before it would be sent off to whatever animation house is going to do the animation, or if they're going to do the animation. But animation in particular has some very unique qualities. Number one, it is the biggest draw for artists who want to do voiceover. the two things I hear most often when people tell me, when I say, so why do you want to do voiceover? Well, the ladies, they tell me I have a really nice voice on the phone. Or my kids giggle hysterically when I make up voices. So I'd be really good on Saturday morning cartoons. And then, I have to disabuse them of the notion that Saturday morning cartoons even exist anymore. They don't. But it's what we all grew up with. So, that's what but unfortunately, it's also dominated in many ways by celebrities. And because there are celebrities that are celebrities to everybody, and then there are celebrities within the animation world, like Maurice LaMarche and Fred Tatasciore and Billy West and Rob Paulson and people like that. I'm very fortunate to have done some really awesome work, not to the level that they have. I play a recurring character on a Disney franchise called Hulk and the Agents of Smash. I'm a supervillain, so I can't be killed, which is nice because then they keep calling me back. But it's all done in a studio.
Yeah.
And it's often done in a studio with other people talking at the same time. Whereas other areas of voiceover are done in isolation booths where, there may be 3 isolation booths in a room, but you're all in separate isolation booths so they can control the volume in the mix. Normally when I do animation, whether it's for video games or whether it's for animated series, I'm in a room with 2 or more people. I remember when I did the last episode of Hulk, we had 15 people in the room.
Whoa.
So it was more like an ADR session than an animation session. But the truth is, there's very little chance that a network or studio animation series will have you do work for that series at home.
Yeah.
There are people doing commercial stuff all the time, but not for the national stuff, not for network stuff. You're going to go in and do it in a studio.
So we think, just with the state of things now, probably the network animation is the thing that's going to be tanked while everything else.
I don't know that it's going to be tanked. I don't know. Maybe they'll switch over to having people do things at home. I mean, there's many other ways of doing it from home.
Sure.
It's not just sending in your voice work as a WAV file or an MP3 file.
Right.
You could use a piece of software like IPDTL or Source Connect, which took the place of what was the standard ISDN, where instead of connecting up over the net and it sounds like this, which isn't high enough quality to do final work, you actually connect up with a much more shielded internet connection, and it sounds a ton better. It sounds like it would if you were in a studio. And so they can work with that. And that may be where things go.
Yeah, that was a question I wanted to ask you, was Source Connect, and do you have that? Do you use it? That was one thing my agent asked if I had, and I've been hearing a lot of people saying, get it now, get it now. So I just wanted to get your take on that.
I mean, I don't use Source Connect.
Okay.
If I needed Source Connect, I would install it within a half an hour and I'd be done with it. I mean, it's not hard. It's there are plenty of resources that they have. They'll walk you through it, especially if you buy the level of Source Connect that costs money.
Right.
There's a free version, there's a low paid version, and there's a higher level version, and probably some options other than that. But you've got a lot of people who can help you with that. And truthfully, the demand may or may not be there for you for stuff that requires Source Connect. Almost everything is either send us a WAV file if it's production work, or send us an MP3 file if it's auditions. Even on ACX, you're uploading MP3 files, high bitrate MP3 files, well-formed MP3 files, but MP3 files nonetheless. So Source Connect, if you want to go and buy it, go ahead, but don't be upset if you go months or years without having to use it. So
got it.
Yeah, that may change. But
yeah, another Deborah here just said she got an email from her agent about Source Connect as well, and that's what my agent asked. And I said I don't have it. I said I'll look into it. But I don't know if it's a necessity yet. But yeah, it's $700 for the first level and $1,500 for the top level, you know? So that's an investment. So I think we can maybe hold on that and wait and see where the industry is going.
But let me give you a piece of advice.
Yes.
Get the free level and get it installed, or get the low cost level and get it installed. There's something called Source Connect Elements, I think. I don't know. I haven't paid much attention to it.
Okay.
But there is a free version that limits how long you can use it, and get that, because updating or upgrading is not upgrading the actual software. It's just upgrading your account.
Right.
So if you get it installed, you can truthfully say when they ask, yes, I have it. Yes, I do. Have I used it? No. But I have it.
I'll figure it out.
That's right. Exactly. That's what we do. We're artists. We figure it out.
Right? Exactly. So Robert asked, he just said SoundForge Studio? Question mark. I don't know what that is, so I'll let you.
SoundForge is one of the Windows sound editing pieces of software.
Got it.
Audacity is available for Windows as well, but SoundForge is in that category of Adobe Audition and Pro Tools and Reaper and all the other things that cost money. It's fine, but it's overkill. So if you got it and you paid for it and you know how to use it, great.
Great.
But if you're trying to figure out what to use, please don't waste your money. Not now, when you're trying to figure out, should I be calling the mortgage company and seeing if I can get forbearance on my mortgage? Right. Or can I talk to my landlord about maybe skipping a month on the rent? Or, gosh, I hope they don't come and repossess my car. Start making decisions about your money wisely. That's not a place to spend money when you don't have to, especially for voiceover. You're laying down single track, mono, dry voice all the time. You don't need anything more than Audacity.
Awesome. So we have a couple people asking questions about computers. Anna said she needs to get a new computer as she's moving into the home-based work, and wondering if there's a preference for MacBook Air or Pro in terms of VO programs and equipment. I think some people were saying, should I get a Mac? Should I get a PC? What do I do? So what's your take on that?
So I'm kind of like very much pro Macintosh for artists in general. And this is temporary advice, because we're at a moment in history where this is temporary advice. Apple just discontinued my go-to Mac recommendation, and that was the MacBook. Not, listen carefully, not the MacBook Air, not the MacBook Pro. I hope I don't have to repeat that. Not the MacBook Air, not the MacBook Pro, just MacBook. It was available from 2015 through September of last year.
Oh, wow.
And the reason that it's what I use, the reason I use it, it has no fan.
Oh,
none.
Thank God.
So now that what's the big deal there? Well, the big deal there is if you're recording a half-hour-long chapter for an audiobook, and your MacBook Air or your MacBook Pro or your iMac or your Mac Mini or whatever you have other than the MacBook from 2015 to 2018 gets overheated, the fan will kick on. You may not notice it, but you will when you go back to start editing what you've recorded. And you won't know where it started or where it ended. And in that time period in between, you have to apply judiciously noise reduction to get rid of it. What if there was no chance of it happening at all? And it's cheaper than the other two MacBooks, the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, just plain MacBook with no word that follows it. You can still find them. You can find them refurbished on the Apple Store. If you Google Apple refurbished, you'll find the Apple Store. And it's also available from time to time on places like Woot.
Okay.
It's still available on Amazon. Amazon owns Woot. I'll point out that Amazon also owns Audible and owns ACX. So I like Amazon. I like Amazon a lot. But that's my recommendation. If you're not going to use, if you can't find a MacBook, I recommend that you use a Mac Mini and that you put it in a drawer that is, under the table away from you, and then run cables, or any computer that has a fan. You can put it outside the room that you're doing and then run cables or use Bluetooth to get to it for your monitor, for your mic, for your keyboard, your mouse, and things like that. But man, that MacBook. I know Phil Schiller, who's one of the muckety mucks at Apple, and I sent him a gift because it was so lovely when they came out with that, and I realized just how good it would be for voiceover talent to use that Mac. And when they discontinued it, I called him and I said, well,
How dare
he
you?
goes, I know, I know, I know. I could tell you that I fought for you, but I didn't. There were other things that we needed to do. And by the way, you know, Apple makes their money on mobile phones and services and iPads. You know, they don't make their money on computers anymore.
Mm,
To their credit, they haven't stopped developing new computers, just like everybody in the world of Windows has. And Microsoft, you know, Dell, you know, they make money on services and servers. And so the personal computer in our lifetime will likely morph into something else. But right now, that is, if you can find a MacBook that was released between 2015 and 2018, grab it. They're like maybe $500 now, refurbished. So it's less expensive than you might think a computer would
right.
be. So
Refurb computers are great. I've always had a refurb until last year. I finally bought like a new one.
and you can also, if you're a student of mine, or if you teach courses, you can honestly go to the education store at Apple and save 5 or 10% right off the top doing purchases from the education store. So there's lots of ways to lower your cost, but and if you're going to get a Windows device, try to get a Windows device that is above the grade of being a pure tablet. Like the Surface is okay, and Trenton will be happy to tell you what I think he uses a Surface 2, or I don't know what he's using.
Okay.
Surface Pro. He's using a Surface Pro.
Surface Pro, yeah.
Yeah. So it's fine. It's absolutely fine. The problem with Windows 10 is that the sound software and hardware can be finicky.
Mm.
There's no the team that does sound at Apple is the A squad. The team that does sound at Microsoft is kind of the B squad. No offense, but they just don't care that much about it. They care about Office and Teams, and they care about, you know, servers. They care about Azure, which is their server farm stuff. You know, that's what they care about. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I prefer Macintosh.
Yeah, I'm a Mac girl as well, and I will say the fan is a pain in the butt. But we said earlier that we figure it out, and we always find the workaround and work through it. I'll share my embarrassing workaround that I had to do with my computer. I got the fan kicks in. Yeah, I hear it. I'm like, it's like, you're on a roll. You want to keep going. I got those circular pie cake pans, and I put an ice pack in it and a towel, and then I put my computer on it. Stopped it completely. I just have to keep changing the ice pack.
Yeah, if you can keep your computer cool,
yeah,
then it won't kick on. If you can't hear the sound, then you win.
Right.
So either keep it cool, or put it in a drawer, or put it outside the room. But whatever you need to do, you can do it. You can also buy software, or you can download software that will actually turn off the fan, even though your computer is overheated. I wouldn't do that. You're begging for trouble there.
How do you keep the computer outside the room? Like if I'm doing the stair method and I'm, you do your QW, punch it. How am I doing that if the computer's outside the room?
So I use a Logitech Bluetooth keyboard, no cables, right? I use a Logitech Bluetooth mouse. It's actually a trackball, the M570. And for my monitor, I would just get a long cable. You can get cables that are 30 feet long, and same thing with your USB cable coming out of your microphone. And then just stick it outside the door. Put it in just outside the door is all you really need. If you can put distance between you and wherever the pickup space is with your microphone, it's like a big ball around the mic, or a cone if it's a shotgun mic, or the shape of my spleen, if you know how my spleen is shaped. So as long as it can't be heard by the microphone, again, you win. So figure that out one way or the other.
Great. All right, to that end, Kat says, what about in a small living space getting started? I don't have a walk-in closet. Is there a way to set up something just to start out in a small shared living space?
Well, it depends on how shared it is,
Mm,
because all of the sound that you have to get rid of isn't just traffic noise and the neighbors upstairs. It could be the refrigerator in your kitchen if it's really close, or
right.
the buzz from the ballasts that are part of the fluorescent lights that you might have in the room.
Mm-hmm.
In this room, I use LEDs. I use LEDs all throughout my house because they're absolutely silent. And so there's that. But then there's
Right.
also these odd noises that your plumbing makes, and these odd noises that your roommates make. If you say a shared living space, you know, how shared is that? Is
Yeah.
somebody over in the corner going, yeah, I'm just going to be watching Netflix over here, nice and quiet, and they're listening with headphones, but then every so often you're, you got to be careful about that. So, but I do have an article on voheroes.com, and the title of the article is, If Caroline Can Build a Voiceover Booth,
Ah,
So Can You.
awesome.
I had a client who used moving blankets to set up four moving blankets in a square pattern hanging from the ceiling.
Awesome.
And she was able to lower her noise floor to the point where she could do at least auditions in that space. And with audiobooks, if you can get the noise floor below 60, either by reducing sound as far down as you possibly can, unplugging the refrigerator while you're recording, remembering to plug it back in, um, and or the very careful, very judicious use of noise reduction. And I've got an article on voheroes.com that's titled "An Extremely Dangerous Article About How to Use Noise Reduction," because you can really ruin your performance.
Mm,
The good news is, with Audacity and every other piece of software, you just hit Command Z or Control
do
Z
it.
and you undo. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in a shared living space, it's a little bit tougher, but it is doable.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I wanted a couple of people have been asking if this recording will be available, because I want to get these resources. So once the video is done today, I just want to say that I am recording it. I will be putting it in my Facebook group on Facebook called the Actors Think Tank. So if you do want to watch it, I'm going to be posting it in that group. It's an open group. Anyone can join. I think a lot of you are already in there. I'm just going to type the link here in the chat. Just make sure you get in there if you want to watch it again, okay? That will be available to you.
And also know that, as we said earlier, we're going to give you a link to the free class that I have. It contains all of this information.
There you go.
The big course that I teach, that many people who are here already have been through, goes much deeper into everything. But if you want this overview like we're doing right now, that's why I put that class together, because people are like, what mic do you use? What software do you use? How do you set up your space? And the much more important part, those are all math problems to me. Those are all like, here's what I suggest you do. But the real key for me when I teach people how to do voiceover is not just the art and the tech, right? The science, but also the commerce, the business of the business, how the deal flow works in the world of voiceover, how auditions are acquired, how casting people work, how agents work.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, the mindset, which I know is something that's really key to what Jodie teaches. And it's one of those things that I found over the years, I was getting more and more questions about. How do you handle the rejection?
Yeah.
How do you handle the fact that the rejection is silent? You don't even get told no. You don't get told anything.
Mm-hmm.
Only the person that gets booked gets told something. And then you have this like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm too old for this. My voice isn't deep enough. My voice isn't high enough. My voice isn't funny enough. The imposter syndrome starts to set in. All the things that I know you've done work with your clients on, and
Yeah.
I do more and more and more these days, because, being a performer is a choice that you make to take a big hammer and put your thumb on the table and hit it as hard as you can over and over and over again and say, is there a bigger hammer somewhere? Can I have a bigger hammer? Thank you. Right? It is. That's how it can feel sometimes.
Yeah, It's true.
And you really have to get your mind in the right place. I did a couple of years ago now, almost. I did a 21-day live online every day at 10 o'clock for an hour or so course called Believe.
Oh yeah.
And it was about taking limiting beliefs, and we have hundreds of them,
Mm-hmm.
limiting beliefs and superstitions,
Mm-hmm.
and killing them and replacing them with enabling beliefs. And I folded that work into the VO Heroes Pro program, which is the big program that I teach. But I think it's really important as performers that you understand you have to get your head in the right space to be able to operate in a way that isn't depressing all the time.
Oh, totally.
Because you're not going to get the job,
Right. Right. Most
right?
of the time you're not. It's about
You're
building
not.
relationships. And
Plumbers don't have to worry about that.
right.
Plumbers get the job. It's amazing.
Right.
Oh, you can clean a drain out? Great. Could you come to my house on Tuesday? You
Right.
know, it's like, yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway,
I'm glad you said that, because I think, even when I started coaching 12 years ago, it was like your branding and your business plan and marketing, and just more so over the years I got to do a lot of work on limiting beliefs and things like that now, because if your mind ain't right, it's much harder to get all this stuff in place, or to get
yeah,
this stuff in place with ease and joy, right?
sure,
And not
sure.
struggle.
Yeah.
So you said the word auditions, and I want to get there just because I know we're getting not close to time, but it's 3:05 here. So we talked a lot about the setup. So let's talk about auditions, because we know we can get our audiobooks on ECX, and I've been getting a lot of emails from voices.net, Voice123, and I wanted to know your experience with those sites, or maybe some of your clients' experience with those, and where do you think those sites are going? Do you think there's going to get more work on them? Do you think they're viable places to get commercial IVR auditions now? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So thank you, voices.com, for killing voice voice registry and
Voice Bank?
voice bank. I hate voices.com, and I'm not at all worried that they will see this, because when they asked me to be one of their coaches and they would refer work to me, I said, I'm afraid I'm not available, nor are any of my coaches. I have a team of 7 coaches, and none of them are available to you either. And that's all I said. And then they wrote back and asked me why. And I said, here's why. Voice Bank and Voice Registry was the breakdown services of VoiceOver. It was where all the highly paid stuff, the networks, commercials, the animation shows, the video games, that's where they would go to get cast. And now that doesn't exist anymore. Voice Bank bought them, or I'm sorry, voices.com bought them and then killed them, because they're like, well, you can just give us the auditions and we'll take care of it for you.
Got it.
What do you think?
Got
But
it.
they're not very transparent about the fact that they will be happy to manage a project for somebody. And if somebody was willing to pay you and I as talent $1,000 to do a job, give us the $1,000. We'll cast it for you. We'll pick your step. We'll help you manage the thing, and then they'll pay the talent $400, keeping $600 for their trouble. It's not even like they're skirting around the agent laws. There's a reason that agents, by law, by state law, cannot take more than 10% of what you earn, because this kind of thing could happen.
Right.
So I don't recommend voices.com. I recommend you stay as far away from voices.com as you can. I recommend that voices.com dies tasting their own blood under the truck that has just exploded over them as it runs them over.
Got it.
But other than that, they're fine.
Okay.
Now,
Once a
Voice
bigger
123,
hammer is what
yeah, the hammer thing, right?
Yeah.
Voice 123, you will find work on Voice 123. It may take you a while, and they are expensive. There's also VO Planet, and there's a new entrant last year or two called Voquent, which is in the UK, and they have the best approach of all of the different. I hope they get more and more popular, because there's Bidalgo, there's voiceovers.com. There's a lot of people streaming into this space because there was such a hue and cry over voices.com submarining Voice Bank. It's a different animal from being with an agent. It's the pursuit of a number of projects, but the supply is far outstripped by or the demand is far outstripped by the supply. So
Okay.
there's hundreds of thousands of people who wake up on a bright sunny Tuesday morning and go, you know what, by God, I'm not going to be an auto repairman anymore. No, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a voiceover talent. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to narrate audiobooks. Yeah, that's what how hard can that be? Seriously. No, really, seriously. So anybody can be a voiceover talent.
Yeah.
Anybody can just simply declare themselves a voiceover talent. Same thing with acting. Nobody
Sure.
walks, you tell somebody in Los Angeles, oh, I'm an actor. Usually the answer is, yeah, me too. But nobody says to you, well, where did you get your MFA? Nobody,
Right.
nobody other than just like casual conversation, did you go to school for that? Great. But not in the choosing of somebody for a role.
Right.
And also, you could suck at it and still call yourself a professional actor or voiceover talent because you're in the pursuit,
Sure.
right? So there's no licensing required. There's no certification required, right? So there's all that going on. And those people tend to gravitate, everybody tends to gravitate when they first start off toward casting sites like Voice 123 and others.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is it creates a noise floor. It happens on ACX as well.
Sure.
That's why if you pay the slightest attention to doing your audiobook stuff well, even acceptable, as opposed to, well, it's how hard can it be? Oh my gosh, rights holders are like, where have you been all my life? Because there's this noise floor of people who don't know what they're doing. They
Yeah.
buy really inexpensive microphones. They wear the headsets, or they don't know how to edit. There's like, buzzing and room noise and stuff going on. And they don't know what they're doing. But there's many, many, many more of those than there are of the people that are on this webinar. You guys are all here because you're self-selected, right? You've declared yourself not only an actor, but somebody who wants to be professional and excellent and developed, and you're here because you want to be good.
Yeah.
And there are so many people who just play pitty cat with it. It's awful. But there are opportunities there. They don't pay as well as union jobs.
Okay.
Sometimes there's a union job there. Once every decade or so, there's a union job there.
Do you think, though, with the state of things, that more union jobs are going to go through there, or you think they're just going to stay through with the agents and now we need to have our home set up?
Yeah. So I don't know. I wish I could
I
answer
know.
that question.
I
You're
don't
still
know.
going to, no, you do. That's two different questions. You're still going to need a home setup, whether it comes from an agent or not.
True.
And I think that is a path that we are all headed towards. The distributed, like there are companies who are virtual, totally virtual. Mine is one. And so that's something that I think is going to be a long time trend. But the idea of whether that's ever going to be concentrated again in a replacement site like Voice Bank, here's what I'm hoping. I went to a meeting at the union at SAG-AFTRA in December.
Okay.
And Penguin Random House was talking about Ahab, which I know you mentioned in the group. And I don't know, did you see that? Did you go to that?
No.
So they have big plans for Ahab.
Oh, do they?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it could, if they did things right, if they did it the way I think they're planning on doing it. First, it's gonna be their audiobook. It's ahab.us.
Yeah, I wrote it.
It's their audiobook casting site. It's where they want people to go put their stuff so that their producers, which there are many, can go and find people to voice audiobooks. They're voicing audiobooks all the time.
Yep.
But
I got 2 jobs from being on Ahab at Penguin.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And did you go to Penguin in Woodland Hills to do them?
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Mm-hmm.
I love going there and doing books. I love it.
So lovely. And
it's just a lovely experience. It really is. So they're going to first, according to what they said, and they said we could share this, so I'm just telling you, their plans are to open it up to other publishers.
Okay.
To put projects up there. So what's the next step? Opening it up to things other than audiobooks. And
Wow.
That's an opportunity to have a walled garden like Voice Bank was,
Yeah.
that was only for the good stuff,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they're very union friendly. It's not like, the union made an error in the early 2000s when Voice 123 came around. They said, hey, how can we work with you? We're the union, we don't need you. We've got Voice Bank, we don't need you. Oh,
Uh,
okay. And they went away. It's not like Voice 123 didn't want to work with the union at all. They did. And unfortunately, the people that were in charge then didn't see the potential
benefit. Yeah.
and basically told them to go away.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what's going to happen. I think that it's going to be a really interesting time. I feel like I'm in among, I was born and have lived in among the most interesting times in our history. The Industrial Revolution, the Renaissance, very, very interesting times, but not as compressed and as potent changes all in one 50, 60-year period as there has been now. And it's just going to get much more interesting over the next 10 years.
Sure. Even in the next 10 months to see where, everything falls.
Absolutely.
So people are asking if SAG-AFTRA members are allowed to do non-union voice over work.
So the answer is it depends.
Okay.
If you're a SAG-AFTRA member, you're familiar with Global Rule 1, which means if you're a union member, you cannot work on non-union jobs. But people forget the rest of that sentence. Non-union jobs in whose category coverage exists with blanket contract, meaning television, commercials, radio, audiobooks, and some other areas of voiceover, IVR,
Mm-hmm.
in-store announcements, explainer videos, anything that's on the coeducational contract. Those aren't usually covered by blanket contracts. Everybody has an individual contract there. And so for those categories, there's no rule about you not doing non-union work. Now, with audiobooks, they're always offering it to you either as a union job or a non-union job. The same book. What would you prefer?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
But in some cases, like on Voice 123, if you're going to do an in-store thing, there's no union contract that's a blanket contract across the entire industry for that work, for IVR work, and so on. And so those categories you can. Commercials, absolutely not.
Right.
Animation, absolutely not.
So for example, if you were on Voice 123 and it was a non-union commercial or radio spot, you as a union member, you cannot do that. But you can do an audiobook, you can do IVR. So you just have to know where it falls, but not the commercial radio stuff.
Yeah. And I'm on the audiobooks narrator steering committee for SAG-AFTRA. And so, we've seen the pattern from very little coverage. Only the big players were covered as union people, like Penguin and Tantor and places like that. Now everybody wants access to union narrators.
Yeah.
And there have been a couple of work stoppages and refusals that we have engaged in to get companies to become a union signatory.
Yeah.
And that's just for your own protection. I mean, there are companies out there that are paying 1/4 the rate of union work, and no health and retirement contributions, no some of the things we've written in our amount of time in the studio in a day, research, pickups, being paid for coming back and doing revisions that the author made to the original manuscript. I remember doing a book on Robert Durst. I don't know if you know who that is. He's the elderly man who is a serial killer. He's a New York
okay. Yeah.
from a billionaire family. He was the subject of the movie or of the HBO documentary called The Jinx.
Okay.
And they caught him at the urinal admitting that he did it. Anyway, so I did this book, and as we were doing the book, he was captured. And so Penguin Random House
that's funny.
said to the author, hey, we should update chapter 27, right? And he's like, yes. And so over the weekend, we rushed to get it done. Same thing happened with a book I did called League of Denial, which was about the NFL concussion crisis. As we were finishing it, the NFL settled for some $700 million with a group of litigants. And so that changed it, right?
Mhm.
So these things happen, but under non-union contracts, well, so
Yeah.
pick it up. Well, under union contracts, pick it up and we'll pay you.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, speaking of audiobooks, obviously we know acx.com is a great place to get work. I know some of you have asked about this. Some of you might be hearing about this for the first time. But Allison also asked, I wanted to go back to one of her questions. She said the ACX asks for the rate for per finished hour, the PFH. She's nervous that it would take her a ridiculous amount of time to edit one finished hour. So how do you recommend I charge for that? Or how do you decide if you should do per finished hour or over royalties?
So you, first of all,
to this, but I just want to say, I don't know if you got that email, David, that Audible was saying, ACX was saying they're paying an extra 5% on royalties now to people. And I was like, thank you so much.
yeah, and just to be clear, just to be accurate, it's 2.5% for you and 2.5% for the rights holder. But it is a temporary thing.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's nice that they're doing that.
Yeah.
Of course, today they kind of went the other direction with promo codes.
Oh no.
Yeah. So next time you log into ACX, you'll get a little alert that pops up and says, we've changed our policy when it comes to promo codes. And so, yeah, but that's okay. It's okay. It's there. Like I said, when they lowered the royalty share from 50-50 to 40-60,
yeah,
you want to get all angry about it? Great, go get all angry about it. But it's their arena. It's their rules. It's their game. If you want to play in their game, in their arena, you either say, yes, I accept your rules, or you don't. There's no reason to get all bent out of shape about it. Mm-hmm. So the answer to your question is get trained properly on how to do audiobooks. Yeah. First of all, you don't get to pick whether it's per finished hour or royalty share. You only get to pick whether you are willing to take one or both of those types of projects. But when the project comes to you, the rights holder, the publisher or the author that is asking you to do their book, they've already decided how they want to pay. Either they want to pay per finished hour, or they want to pay one of two ways with royalty share, either royalty share or royalty share plus. And I know I was teaching royalty share plus before royalty share plus was a thing.
Yep.
So that's kind of a combination of both. You get both the royalty share and you get an upfront payment for doing the production work. So you're going to audition for something, or you're going to see a project on ACX, it's already going to be defined as one or the other. So you don't get to worry about that. But what you do want to worry about is removing that fear that you have that you'll be spending 20 hours in the studio for every 1 hour of finished work. When ACX does surveys on this sort of thing, they usually come up with figures. They say, how long does it take you to do one finished hour of work? And back in 2016, when they did it, it was between 6 and 10 hours for the average narrator to do an hour's worth of work.
Wow.
I'm not bragging. I'm telling you, if you use my method, or if you train with somebody who can show you exactly the right way to do audiobook narration, you should be able to drop that down to 3-to-1, 2-to-1, or even less. Mm-hmm. And if you do, you want to make sure that you're not cutting corners. You know, the stair-step method doesn't in any way, shape, or form impinge on the quality of what you end up with. In fact, if anything, it helps you focus on your performance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get it. It's like, oh my God, how long will it take me to do an hour in the studio?
Right.
It should take you between 3 and 4 when you're first starting off, if you're trained at it. If you're not trained at it, it could be 50 because you don't know what you're doing. I've had people who've come to me and say, well, here's how I do audiobooks. I say a sentence, and then if I like it, I'll say the next sentence. If I don't like it, I'll go back and I'll say it again. And maybe I'll do it again. I don't know. Sometimes I come up with 7 or 8 different ways of saying the sentence. And then I'll go on to the next sentence. And then I'll go back and by this time, I'm like ready to take them to a hospital, because I'm thinking to myself, this is like when you walk into the room and the child has, paint all over its face because it's eaten some of it. You know, it's like, no, no. You have to have faith
Yeah.
that your ability to narrate an audiobook without heavy rehearsals,
Hmm.
without going back and doing multiple versions of a sentence or a paragraph and then later choosing which ones, like we do with on-camera takes.
Yeah.
You have to know that you have that ability to, and everybody does.
Hmm.
Everybody does. You and I, meaning you, the viewer, and Jodie and I, we're special. We know how to do this even better than most people.
Hmm.
And you really have to have that internal confidence that you can go from the beginning. Your eye will see what's coming in the audiobook. You get it. You've already read through it once for potholes, looking for pronunciation and that sort of thing. That's really what slows us down
Yeah.
as audiobook narrators is, oh, I've never seen that word before. How's that pronounced?
Right.
So, or I've never seen that brand before, or that geographic location before, or that drug, or that you know scientific term. You know, those are the things that you read ahead of time and you put
Right.
together a pronunciation guide for, and that keeps things flowing. But usually, I'm able to, in a day at Penguin Random House, I'm able to do at least 100 or 120 pages.
Sure.
And so there are days when I do a lot less because I had to convince my producer that Woburn is not pronounced Woburn, it's pronounced Woburn. If you're from Boston, you know what I'm talking about. And my producer was not having any of it. So I said, can we call the library there in that city and find out what they say? And the moment the librarian picked up the phone, she said, Woburn Public Library. I'm sorry, what did you say? Woburn Public Library. Okay, thank you. Wrong number. Click. And we went back to work.
That's funny.
That happens sometimes. And sometimes it takes longer than that. You know, I don't know what that was. I looked it up. I couldn't find it, whatever. So
Right.
you do have that sort of work to do from time to time. But
Hmm.
in general, the storytelling should flow.
Yeah. It
It's
gets
your
to be
performance.
fun.
That's your art.
That's
Yeah,
the improv acting, right? Just go with it. Yeah, that's why I
absolutely.
think audiobooks are so much fun. They're so fun. But yeah, it takes a lot of trust in your ability and faith in your ability as well. I just
Yeah.
want to say Ed here said it takes him 2.5 hours and includes auditions, setup, and marketing. I love it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So once you figure it out, it's not that bad, and then you can base your PFH on what the time you know it's going to take you and what
Well,
is.
I don't think you should base your PFH on that.
Okay.
I think you should base your PFH on what's going to get you retirement contributions.
Fair enough.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I mean, I'll just say it. I'll just rip the bandage off.
Yeah.
My PFH is $1440.
Great.
$1,440 per finished hour.
Wow.
I don't get a lot of, this is on ACX. I don't get a lot of work on ACX that is PFH, but I do get work. And sometimes it's from people who want the puppet master from Heroes to be their voice.
Sure.
And sometimes it's from wealthy dilettantes who have absolutely no idea how to write. And I know that I am going to spend more time simply correcting their work
Yeah.
than I would with somebody who's a good writer.
Right.
But that's my
Right.
PFH, and my contribution is 13% of that. So PFH for union rates is usually around $200 or $250 per finished hour. I
Mm-hmm.
tell people to set that as their floor for
Right.
PFH. I don't care if you're a union member or not. I don't care. And you know, you can even, well, you can even open an account at AFTRA in their health and retirement plan if you're not a union member. Did you
What?
know that?
No.
Yeah. So people that aren't union members, because it's an ERISA law, it's a federal law.
Oh.
And you can't get at the money until you become a member of the union,
Okay.
but
Okay.
you can have your contribution. All you have to do is call them up and say, I want to open an account. Well, are you in the union? Nope. I want to open an account. Okay. You know, they
Yeah.
handle that every so often. And there have been people who have then upgraded into being union status. But you want that 250 per finished hours so that on ACX, you get the contribution of health and retirement.
Right.
And you're getting paid a reasonable rate for your work,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah. Totally. Totally. All right, we're getting at time here. I mean, there is still some questions here. I know a lot of you had questions. These are all great. So I just want to reiterate again that I will be posting this video in my Actors Think Tank group. David's also a member of that group, as am I. So if you want to post these questions in there on the video, you can tag me, tag David. You know, we'll get these questions answered. Obviously, we just can't stay here all day as much as
Am I answering too long? Am I taking too long to answer?
Yes, David. It's all, I blame you. It's all your fault. No, people just have great questions. Oh, I'm so sorry. You know I'm kidding. People just have great questions. You're asking about like how to create a demo reel and what material do you recommend? I mean, these are all like really in-depth questions too, as well.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, this is one of those businesses where there's a whole bunch of paint pots on your palette. And you think, oh, they're like a 1/4 inch deep. All I have to do is, you know, dip my brush in the water and grab a little, you know, Azurian blue and a little Prussian white and whatever. And I'm going to make those paint pots go deep.
Yeah.
And you really need to understand how this works. It's a deceptively easy skill because the people that do it make it look easy.
Right.
And if there's anybody that's equipped and prepared to do this, it's you guys, it's you actors.
Yeah.
You know, the best voiceover talent in the world are actually great actors, period. No exceptions. Even Joe Cipriano, you know, he does voiceover exclusively. Wally Wingert, he doesn't do any on-camera work, but he was great in Saved by the Bell. So I think that's what it was, Saved by the Bell. I think he was on that. But he, you know, he told me I just prefer voiceover because I don't have to get dressed up.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of these questions you're asking are in depth. It's like I had a client today and she said, oh, well, I did the, you know, free workshop at SAG where they give you adjectives. So I know my brand. I'm like, oh no, that's not what branding is. That's a tiny
It's the
piece of
beginnings.
branding. Yeah. It's a piece of it.
It's the beginnings.
So why I wanted to host this webinar and bring David on is to give you the beginning, right? Give you the beginning steps of, okay, we know the industry is shifting. We know this is still a viable place to create income and have a career. So now it's about deciding what path do you want to go down? Do you want to go down audiobooks? Do you want to start setting up your space? Do you need to tweak things? Do you want to start learning more about commercial VO? And that's why I love it that David has his voheroes.com/start thing to get started and just get an overview and start, then you can start to see what your next steps are. Because everyone's different.
And I think going back to Dara's initial question, once you get your stuff set up, you can then use it for all kinds of different things. Yes, you can use it for audiobooks, but you can also use it for everything else. It's like, I got my gear, I got the basics, now I can go explore and see what I want to do.
Exactly. So David, just thank you so much for agreeing to come on this webinar. It's been really great information. Everyone's just saying how much that they love this, and it's just good stuff to hear right now, and giving everyone hope that there are things you can control. You just got to make a choice, right? We can either sit at home and drink wine all day, or we can actually take steps. I do it at night. Just do it at night.
Wait, hold on. I have that option. I can do that.
Some people are, and that's fine. You can do what you need to do. And those of us who are taking the steps and being in control of our own careers, we're going to be ready for this when it comes back, and whatever that looks like, right? So great. So go to voheroes.com/start. I posted the link there. And if you guys haven't downloaded my free ebook, for those of you who might not know me, you can go to jodiebentleycareercoach.com. I'll put that there as well. And you can go to free stuff, and that's where you can join my Facebook group. You can download my ebook. There's a couple other things on there for you. I have a ton of blogs, as David does as well. We're constantly putting out content for you, and even more so, I feel, during this time, because it's just so important to be in it together. So
thank you, Jodie.
Yeah, thanks, David. And thank you, everyone. And we will see you soon. Thank you. Bye.